am continuing with the series that I've got going here, and if anybody's paying attention, I put these up on the board. The line is underneath teams I've done, and I'm going in order. So I'm going through each day and going, all right, all I've got left is Edmonton, Chicago, St. Louis. Then I got 4 left in the Atlantic, which is Florida, Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit. So I might as well do one of the Atlantics. And the Atlantic that I'm doing today is Florida. Florida's an interesting one because they would have made the playoffs if we did a 1 versus 16 format. They would have made the playoffs ahead of Colorado. So Florida's not as dire as they may have looked the first half of the season. Excellent second half. And honestly, for Cap, they're doing pretty well. Huberdeau's the number 1 paid guy, $5.9 million until 2022, 2023, when he becomes UFA. Sasha Barkov, or Alexander Barkov, depending on however you say it. Sasha's just short for Alexander. $5.9 million, 2021, 2022 is when that one expires. He's UFA at the end of that. Vincent Trocheck, $4.75 million, 2021, 2022 UFA. And that's your core. So what you've got here in Florida is a core that's already shown that they are ready to be a playoff team, and they may be able to add to it. And we'll get to that as we go along. Bukestad, $4.1 million, 2020, 2021. He's a UFA at the end of that. I think Nick Bukestad would have preferred to have had a better season than what he had, but still, reasonable cap hits all the way through. Dadonov, at the time that they signed him for that $4 million, it looked risky. And when you look at what happened with Shipachev in Vegas, KHL guys, it's risky, but they knew what they were doing. And Dadonov, $4 million for another 2 years, as he's UFA at the end of that, and that looks very, very reasonable. Jamie McGinn, I missed an N at the end of that one. Jamie McGinn, $3.3 million for another year, and then he becomes UFA. And so McGinn's got another year at $3.3 million. And then, of course, Radim Verbata has retired, so Verbata will not be back next year. Derek McKenzie, $1.375 million, and then he's a UFA next summer. Colton Sevier, $1.2 million. That kicks in this summer, and that's a signing for 3 more years. So smart move by Florida all around. Borgstrom, of course, made his debut before the end of the year, and he's sort of one of these wild cards for Florida. $925K for 2 more years. Jared McCann's an RFA this summer. He's not going to get a huge raise. McCann, when drafted by Vancouver, was envisioned as being a second/third line center, probably third line, and he is maturing into that role in Florida now where he has no pressure. Haley, $825K for another year. A little bit of sandpaper in that bottom 6. Frankie Vetrano, one of my personal favorites. He's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights this summer. Mammon, $757K. He's a restricted free agent next summer. Brickley's UFA this summer. It'll be interesting to see if they bring him back or not. That's not supposed to be Malkin. Because there's going to be comments. Oh, I didn't know Malkin went there. Yeah. That's supposed to be Malgin. 690K. He's an RFA next summer, of course. This is a really solid forward core. They can get a really solid 4 lines out of this. I have very little doubt that Florida next year can maintain what they've done. The interesting part's going to be the blue line and in goal. Ekblad signed for $7.5 million forever. I think it's still 2024, 25, somewhere in that range. It's forever. It's not worth even talking about when it expires. Yandel, $6.3 million until 2022, 2023. Pissick, $2.75 million for 2 more years. Petrovic, or Petrovic, depending on which feed you're watching for the game. Restricted free agent this summer with arbitration rights. Matheson's $4.875 million forever. Again, Matheson and Ekblad, it's just for so long that I'm like, forget it, just leave it. It's a big move in that now you've got 3 defensemen here that are worth $19 million. And I do still have somewhat of a concern that Florida might be paying too much money for the guys at the top end, but you know what? They're still on the verge of making the playoffs next season. McCaution, $925K for another year. Uyghur, I liked Uyghur when he got called up. Restricted free agent with arbitration rights. And I think he's a solid number 6 guy. In net, things are interesting. Luongo, $4.53 million. Vancouver fans desperately want Luongo to stay in the league until 2021-2022, when he would be a UFA, but of course he'll likely retire before that, and then that giant contract, there's a cap penalty that goes back to Vancouver for signing it. Reimer, $3.4 million, and 2020-2021 is when his expires. So that's around $8 million for Luongo and Reimer combined. Now, when you take a look at what they've got, and I just went with just 5 guys. Owen Tippett, who played a few games this year. Haralick's played in both the East Coast League and in the AHL. Not tremendous totals, but he's not being groomed as a top 6 guy anyways, and as you can see here, they don't need him to be. Satteri's the one that's interesting. He's UFA this summer. He took forever to make his debut in the NHL, but he looked okay. So Florida may very well this summer see if anybody wants Reimer, not Luongo, because Luongo doesn't want to go anywhere, and honestly, Luongo doesn't have any value right now. Reimer might. Somebody out there, I'm looking at you, Philly, might just look at James Reimer and say, we need another goalie for a year that fans can rally around how much they hate him. Reimer is a perfect candidate to be the next guy to go into Philly and get booed out of the building at the end of a series. And Satteri is a backup. He would come in as probably a $1 million cap hit, save them about 3.5 under the cap, and we'd see what they would do with that. Honestly, Florida, money-wise, they're better off than they've been for a long time. Now, whether this is just ownership saying we will pay to put a winner on the ice, or the team actually generating money we don't see with attendance, I don't know. But either way, at least the team seems to be willing to spend some money on their top guys. I think it's Dryden Hunt. I know it's not Dylan Hunt, because Dylan Hunt was on Andromeda. Hunt is an interesting guy on the blue line. And then Masharon, another interesting one as well. We'll see if any of them make it. Of course, they have the number 15 draft pick, and they have the second-round draft pick of Arizona's this year, which is a half-decent draft pick. $80 million cap is the number I've been working at. We'll see how close that is to what is or isn't the cap. They have $14.5 million in cap space this summer if it's an $80 million cap. And all they have to renegotiate is McCann, Vetrano. Neither of them are going to get a big raise. Petrovic may, but it's not going to bring them up to the cap. But considering where Florida's been and how Florida's always been a team that's a bottom feeder, not necessarily on the ice as much as what they pay their players, this is kind of a nice thing to see that they will pay to keep this core together, and it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward next season and beyond. I don't think Florida needs a lot. I think what they need to do is avoid the first half of the season they had this year, improve it by as much as 5 points, just be 5 or 6 games above 500 halfway through the season, cruise through the second half of the season, and this team makes the playoffs. And it would be nice to see after all of the problems that the Florida Panthers have been having for so long. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with their goaltending. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with their blue line. I think their depth up front is solid. And of course, the interesting thing is, when you look at Colton Sevier, I liked him from Dallas. Jared McCann, I like him from Vancouver. Frankie Vetrano, I like him from Boston. They've covered their bases in terms of trying to win me over and make me cheer for Florida. And I've noticed, because all 3 of those guys are ones that I've been very vocally supportive of, and they've all gone to Florida. So, good job by Florida management. And I do think that the darkest time for the Florida Panthers organization has passed. I've even started to appreciate the logo they now sport, even though the old one I still think is kind of classic as well. Kind of fun, but hey. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Was this second half of the season just an event that doesn't really mean very much and they're going to fall apart, or does this mean something? Does this go further? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.